Hi, my name is Anthony Bowles from Anthony Bowles Architecture Limited. Thanks for watching this video. It is part of a short series outlining what initial surveys you may need, subject to your site context, to get your project moving in the right direction. If you have been diligently wading through the other videos in this series, give yourself a pat on the back. You are on the home straight and there are only 2 more after this one. So, to begin with, let's have a quick look at the overall survey set to recap. Here is the full list. I won't read through it line by line, so please just press pause if you'd like to take more time to go through it yourself. In this video, we will go into more detail on what your responsibilities may be in relation to ecology surveys. And I should say that this is by far and away the most varied subject across all the surveys we are looking at. As such, this short preview will not be exhaustive in any way, but hopefully it will give you an introduction to the subject overall so that you will be better informed on the process and you may be able to better anticipate how ecology issues may inform or impact your project, and equally what opportunities may be available to you. Firstly, is there likely to be an ecology component to your survey requirements? If your project is something like a flat renovation, you may be glad to hear that the answer is almost certainly no. If it is a domestic extension in an urban area, it is also likely to be no, although you may still be near an important pond or a particularly old and prestigious tree, for example, and in either case, it could be something that may even be in your neighbour's garden, but that still potentially impacts your property. If, however, your project is a new build or something like a barn conversion in a rural area, then it is pretty much a given that you'll need to address ecology issues, whether that's bats or dark sky restrictions, or anything else that may be applicable locally. So assuming that the need for an ecology review has been established, the quickest and simplest way to proceed is to bring in an ecology consultant, who, as per other consultants, is someone you would typically employ directly. However, they would coordinate with your architectural team and share information as required to move your project forward. So the first step your new consultant would take would be to carry out some form of initial ecological appraisal. This would have a desktop component, which would be carried out in order to compile background information on your site and its surroundings. This would include reviewing the presence of any statutory or non-statutory site designations within a 1 kilometre radius of your site, and researching records of protected species or rare or notable species, again within a 1 kilometre radius. Some of this data may be gleaned from an online resource called the Multi-Agency Geographic Information for the Countryside, with a more memorable acronym MAGIC. Any tree protection orders, or TPOs for example, would be picked up at this stage. Again, with respect to trees, please note that these may be generally protected under conservation area guidelines, so don't assume that conservation only means historic building fabric. Here is an extract of some desktop study text to give you an idea of the detail and the rhetoric. Let's just read through some of it together. Desk study. There are several protected sites within 2 kilometres. These include quarries with bat roosting opportunities, as well as habitats, including rivers with value for commuting and foraging bats. The site is located within the Cranbourne, Chase and West Wiltshire Downs area of outstanding natural beauty. This is part of the extensive belt of chalkland which stretches across southern England. The statutory protected sites include, and then it just goes on to list a number of statutory protected sites, which include a site of special scientific importance, and then it goes on to mention some species that are under particular protection, and it then goes on to mention something about the relatively small scale and extent of the proposals. So this is just a very high level background study. As well as the desktop study, your initial appraisal may also include a habitat survey. This might be a walkover of your property to review biodiversity. Let's take a look at an arboricultural example. This shows a number of trees in the garden of a home. The trees are numbered, identified and categorized for importance and health, and then the drawing indicates the size of the crown of the trees and, more importantly, the size of their root protection area. This is a vital piece of information if you are hoping to build anywhere near trees. And if you look at the size of the largest protection area, which is this large red circle here, bearing in mind that for scale, this is part of the building here. you can see how a tree in a neighbour's garden could very well be impacted by works on your own property. Depending on what is found in the initial appraisal, further surveys and studies may be required to develop a more comprehensive level of information that can be compiled into what is called a Phase 1 survey. This is a robust and well-recognised format which uses a standard methodology for identifying and mapping a habitat. A Phase 1 survey would be authoritative enough to submit as part of a planning application if that was required. Finally, the highest level of survey detail would be for a protected species survey. Again, obviously this would be site-specific, but the two that seem to come up the most are for bats and great crested newts. In fact, though, many native species are protected in law. These species can often be impacted by development, and as such, they need to be considered, ideally the early stages of design projects. Here is an extract from a more detailed bat study. In this first paragraph, the ecology consultant outlines the general circumstances of the survey, and then in this table, they give us the details, so the survey dates, the survey types, who actually carried out the surveys, what equipment they used, the duration, what the weather was like, and when sunset and sunrise was. And then in this final paragraph, they give you some of the specific results. So here, for example, we can see that the static detector recorded the lesser horseshoe bat inside the stables at these times. One thing to be mindful of is that ecology surveys often have a time limitation because they will relate to the annual seasonal cycle followed by the flora or fauna in question. For example, you can't survey bat numbers effectively when they are hibernating and aren't on the move. You can see here in this calendar compiled by ArbTech that bat emergent surveys cannot be carried out between November and March. Great crested newt surveys cannot be carried out between July and February, just as two examples. So the timing of the surveys can have a big impact on your project timescales. This then brings us to mitigation. This is really the design aspect of the ecology component. What do you need to adjust in your proposals so that they minimize disturbance and increase ecology opportunities, both as important things in their own right, but also from the point of view of gaining the relevant consents and licenses. Here is an extract from a bat mitigation proposal relating to a barn conversion in a rural area. In this example, the bats needed to be provided access to the roof via a small dormer, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, into an area of the roof which has been partitioned off for them, which is this blue area here, and which might look something like this. If everything goes well with your planning and you gain a consent, if there was a protected species component to the application, there is a high chance that obtaining a development license will be a formal condition on your consent. These licenses require a whole separate application process through the relevant organisations such as Natural England. These licenses permit activities that would otherwise be illegal, even if you have planning consent for your proposals. Development licenses are only granted once the issuing body is satisfied that the appropriate surveys have been carried out and any mitigation measures are sufficiently robust. But their requirements should have been taken into account by the ecology officer as part of your planning application process, so you would hope not to have any further surprises at this stage. So that is a very general outline of how ecology preserving processes may form a part of your project's own process. The important thing is to try to see this as an opportunity to protect and enhance something that is inherently worth protecting and enhancing, rather than to see it as yet another litigious impediment slowing up your progress, even if sometimes it can feel like that. I hope this has been somewhat helpful. The next survey video in this series will be on a very different subject, asbestos. In the meantime, please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. I will put my email address at the end of this video. Many thanks for watching.